To help give some context, Esther was born on May 28th of 1928 in Czechoslovakia. Esther Roth-Bast was a happy-go-lucky girl just like most of us. She had a happy family, a good childhood, and she was nearing her 16th birthday. Esther was an only child, and her parents were Rabbi Moises and Fanny Roth. Esther was very adventurous, and she would like to go in the mountains and play around with different friends of different religions, both Christian and Jewish. Esther was very young, and she knew that bad things were going on in Germany, but she did not expect it to come to her hometown. Fortunately, in the early months of 1944, things would drastically change for Esther and her family. When the Germans entered her village, her Christian friends turned on her, she wasn't allowed to go to school, and eventually they were moved into a ghetto. She had witnessed her house being robbed by her former neighbors. I had mentioned earlier, Esther was nearing her 16th birthday, and unfortunately by May of 1944, Esther and her parents would be forced onto a cattle car in dire conditions, and they would be taken to Auschwitz. Sadly for Esther, she had arrived at Auschwitz on her 16th birthday. Many of my peers around me have recently had their 16th birthday. None of us could ever imagine having to go through that at any point in our lives, especially this point in our life. And that is why it is so important to share these survivors' stories. It is important to share survivors' stories because we do not want anybody to have to go through this again. We do not want this experience to be relived. We want to learn from our past. Sadly, Esther was separated from her parents forever when they arrived at Auschwitz. Throughout her several months at Auschwitz concentration camp, she had crossed paths with Joseph Mengele, a very well-known doctor from the time of the Holocaust. Esther claims to still have nightmares about Mengele to this day because he was a very horrific doctor that did unimaginable things to the prisoners at Auschwitz. As we fast forward to April of 1945 at this point, Esther was sent to work in an ammunitions factory, which was very far in Germany. On the route there, she had to go on a death march, which she overcame and survived. When she had finally made her way to the ammunitions factory, there were 3,000 other women there too. Luckily, only 3 days after she got there, the American army liberated the area. After 3 months, Esther and the other women would begin their excursion to find a new life. Esther ended up in Budapest, where she met her future husband, Joe. After some time, Esther and Joe moved to Palestine and then to Canada, and eventually she ended up in Phoenix. Esther now currently lives in Prescott, Arizona. Myself and other students are very grateful to Esther and the other survivors for sharing their stories and coming to see us. As students, we will do our part to share these stories and educate more people on the horrors that happened.